We are so happy to be here. The film we are talking about today is Resistentialism, or On the Malevolence of Inanimate Objects. And we are fortunate to have the director with us, Mr. Craig Trumbo.
Thank you. Great to be here.
You were once a professional photographer and a journalism photographer. Is that correct?
Yeah, back in the way back in the day, my undergraduate studies were in journalism, and I focused, so to speak, on photography, and worked as a photojournalist for about 10 years.
How do you feel that your viewpoint as a photographer or journalism affects your art?
Oh, very much so. Actually, in terms of this piece, resistentialism, one of the things I really enjoyed a great deal back in the day at the newspapers was the studio work. We do tabletop photography, so I really enjoyed the studio. So this thing is basically a bunch of tabletop studio type shots. So it kind of resonated there.
So it does seem like your work has a surface of humor to it, but there is below it, not too far below, some like you say, emotions or some strong viewpoints. Do you go out to try to make a strong statement and the humor creeps in, or do you go when you create a work, are you seeking to entertain and then these strong statements sneak in?
What tends to happen lately, I've seen some interviews and such with David Lynch, who I admire and study, and he talks about how ideas come along. And if you haven't looked at that, look up David Lynch on ideas. It's really some really insightful stuff, and some things kind of come in out of left field, but oftentimes what I'm always drawn back to is animating them with stuff that's so-called ripped from the headlines, right? So the just finished a piece that's out under review right now that's on the Dobbs decision here in the U.S. on abortion access, and very much a political statement in that, driven by what I've seen going on in the world, and other things that are coming up are like that as well. So I do sort of imbue my creative process with a response to reality, so to speak. So it's I admire those folks that come up with things that are just completely of whole cloth, but I've got a tenuous grasp on reality still.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned David Lynch because I can see some of those approaches in your work. Of course, he has the idea with the catching the big fish, and he does seem to react to
Yes.
things emotionally. He creates things before he actually knows where they're going to be. Is that how you created these sort of vignettes, and then before you really knew what they were? Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah, very much. I mean, I had the idea. The seed for this thing actually goes back a long time, in that I tried to write an essay, a humor essay for, I don't know, some magazine I imagined, called "On the Malevolence of Inanimate Objects." And I had the introduction kind of sketched out and written, and a couple scenarios, sketched, and it never went anywhere. So I ended up, fast forward to now, needing a project to start to learn a little bit more about the techniques of cinematography of the equipment as I just gotten into it, and so I had this idea for a spoon and a sink, and I really had no idea where that was going to go, right? Until I wheeled the camera up to the sink, said, well, okay. And the really amazing thing was I was just going to do just some technical stuff just to, see that and get into some editing. And I all of a sudden realized I wanted to have some sort of narrative, some sort of plot for each one of these that you could maybe discern. And all of a sudden it became an exercise in what story can I tell about this idea that just kind of flew in. So that happened on each one of those. The hardest one to imbue with a storyline ended up being my favorite storyline, and that's the spatula, right? So, and that was one of those things. It was like, that's the last one I've got there, and it's like, okay, that's one of the malevolent actions that I've learned about people talking about. The spatula stuck in the drawer. The idea was there, and I thought, well, what is this? And somehow it just flew by, Spartacus. And I thought, hey, that's kind of cool. I thought, okay, well, I'll just tell that story, except short and with kitchen utensils. So yeah, I just this was that was really an exercise in ideas floating by and just happening on their own, on the fly most of the time.
Well, my co-host Lily actually mentioned the spatula scene. I'm going to hand it off to her for some more questions.
Mhm.
So, what is the most frustrating inanimate object experience that you've had?
Oh, those definitely. It's easy. The hose, the serpent, right? And that particular hose, the star of that one, the star hose, whatever it was a really cheap one. Because I didn't want to spend a lot of money on a hose that I didn't need, so I bought the cheapest one. It ended up actually being a real pain in the end. And when the whole film was over with, I could not roll the thing up. I mean, it was just like that. And I ended up using a tree lopper to cut it into 3-foot sections so I could get the hell rid of it. It was really a hose from hell.
It met a violent end.
It did, deservedly too. So,
I'm going to ask you about the music. You do all the music yourself?
yeah, yeah.
And so are these produced specifically for these vignettes, or do you have the music and you just see where they fit it in, or do you
Right
compose
now,
them for them?
yeah, right now each of these was produced specifically for the vignette, and following the completion of the film editing. So I do have a collection of bits of music that would be appropriate for films, in my mind anyway, and I'm starting to draw from that pool that I have now to use in future films. Uh, but making the music for it is just a wonderful part of the whole experience. So I'll keep doing that.
You mentioned AI. Are you saying that some of the scripts were actually affected by AI in your process of creating this?
I used it for background research, and
Mhm.
in one instance, on this one, which I forget what it might have been the Nietzsche Aristotle thing, I did write a prompt for it to provide a script outline and asked it to write, and it was awful. Right. I mean, it was awful. And I knew it was going to be awful. But there were just these couple nuggets that made a connection between these two areas of philosophy that I didn't know much about, that offered an entree to me get off the blank page. So it offered more of a seed to my own imagination, and then continued research to develop the storyline rather than producing it itself, which, I've since then, this is a year now, have become much more concerned about the use of AI. And, as a micro budget independent filmmaker, I'm not really affecting anybody's employment or career. So I think I've got a little bit of latitude, but what it really does need to be, regulated in some manner in which it doesn't do harm to creatives. So I'm very much attuned to that now.
But you do have three segments that you worked with actors. How was
Mhm.
that for you?
That was great. It was terrifying. These are the first actors I've ever worked with. This is my first actual film. I went to a film festival, had an epiphany, and started into this project to launch into filmmaking here as I've retired. And so once I had a few of these done, I realized that, well, I need something to glue these together, and then I might actually have a coherent piece. And that's the point where it became the episode of this TV series or what have you. It wasn't, none of that existed at the beginning. So I needed to stick something in there, and it became, oh, we need expert interviews. And then, the wheels just turned, and I ended up with those three wonderful actors who came up from Denver to fill those roles out.
So did I hear you say you're retired? Did I hear you say that?
Yes, yes, I retired about a year ago. So,
And how has that affected your artistic viewpoint of life?
oh well, as a mechanism, life mechanism, is that a thing? It was catalytic, really. Realizing that I didn't go into retirement blind, I did some backgrounding on it, and one of the important things is to have something to do, right? And at about that same time, I went to my first film festival, the Horsetooth International Festival here in Fort Collins, and saw the kind of material that was being made, and it was just like, wow, I want to do that, and I've got the time to do that. So I
Mhm.
decided, no, I'm just going to put a stake down and reinvent myself now as a filmmaker. And I've got a pension. There's my filmmaker salary, And there you go. So
That's great.
thank you.
I'm going to hand it off to our moderator. I believe there may be a question or two from the
Sure.
audience.
I'm going to ask a question because I don't know how to frame it, but it is from one of our audience members. They want to know, Craig, who hurt you? So I think what they're
Oh,
really asking is,
well,
where does that mind come from?
I'll tell you, don't get me wrong. I love my parents. I was born on Halloween on the 31st of October, actually, right? Which would have been great. Would have been great. You know, a whole lifetime of Halloween themed parties. Well, the doctor gave my parents, because it was late at night, the option of dates for the birth certificate. Well, for reasons that I assume were of, some sort of, I don't know, fear, they decided not to have Halloween, but gave me my birthday on the 1st of November. And years later, I figured out they did that. And it was really deep. He deeply hurt me. So maybe that's it, going all the way back.
You have over 40 papers, I believe, that you've published alone.
Yep.
Does the need to publish in academia take away precious time for actual research and or your interest in filmmaking?
Well, the publishing is one of the three areas that you're, as an academic at most institutions, research institutions, where you're supposed to give a certain amount of your time and effort to. And it varies by universities and everything. Where I've been, they expect you to spend about half of your time teaching, and then 35% of your job is research or scholarship or creative work, depending on what kind of field you're in, and the rest is called service, and that's being on committees that run the university and all of that fun stuff. I put a little extra of myself into the research and the writing because I really loved it. There's no way I could have launched into doing this kind of thing while I was working without really neglecting aspects of the job.
Many colleges have that publish or perish.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah, and the benefit, if you really work at it, if you do make tenure and get through those flaming hoops, it's a really a wonderful something to be very thankful for.
There was so much chat about spatulas. Dalton Trumbo was the screenwriter of Spartacus.
Yes.
And so you had said that you don't know if you're related, but now are you interested in maybe taking a peek at that as well?
Oh yeah. Well, I've glommed on to Dalton as much as possible. Why not? And actually, I talked to a relative recently about this and inquired about the genealogy stuff. I mean, what he did, I admired. So I'm just sort of trading on the name a little bit for fun, mostly. He's made it into the film. I just got out on abortion access. I've snuck his testimony before the Congress on the blacklisting thing into the very beginning of that in a video. So he's not in this next thing, but I got to figure out how to get him into the thing after that as well.
What is it that you have learned about yourself through the making of this film?
Oh, that I love storytelling. Really. I mean, that's probably the most profound thing. I've really found, what filmmakers already know, established filmmakers know, that this is such a human thing to do, that we are storytellers more than anything else. If we didn't tell stories, we'd just be funny looking apes running around, right? But we're able to tell stories, and that's how we build the world and imagine the world.
Horror. The horror